India now face up to 75% US tariffs. Trump announces 25% tariffs on countries doing business with Iran amid protests engulfing the nation. New Delhi is among Tehran's largest trade partners. Bloodshed on the streets of Iran continues as the death toll crosses 600. The Pentagon briefs Donald Trump on US options for interventions ranging from military strikes to cyber attacks. India's BRICS presidency will seek to bring greater global welfare, says Foreign Minister Jaishankar, as India is set to assume presidency of the powerful bloc. New Delhi launches the official website and logo. India was ready to launch a ground offensive during Operation Sindoor, and the operation is still on, says Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi. He adds the Indian military eliminated 100 Pakistani personnel during last year's conflict. The Army Chief also calls the 1963 Pakistan-China agreement over Shagsgam Valley illegal and invalid. The Supreme Court stirs warning to stray dog feeders. It asks them to take these canines home. The top court warns states they will have to pay compensation for stray dog bites that lead to deaths or injuries. Politics over actor Vijay's film Jaya Nayagan explodes. Rahul Gandhi accuses his centre of blocking the film's release. The BJP calls the Congress leader a shameless and habitual liar. Is Pakistan-based terror group Lashkar-e-Taiba headed for a major split? LET cadres protest against having to fight the Taliban, the TTP and Baluch rebels on the orders of the Pakistan Army and the ISI. And another Hindu man brutally killed in Bangladesh. 28-year-old auto driver Sameer Das beaten and stabbed to death in the Chittagong region. Hello and welcome to the Times of India. You're watching Headlines at 8 with me, Neha Khanna. Our top story. Could India now face 75% US tariffs? A day after the new US ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, claimed no partner is more essential to the United States than India, Trump announced a new 25% tariff on countries doing business with Iran. India is among Iran's top 5 trading partners. It's already the most tariffed country in the world, with Trump slapping a whopping 50% tariff on New Delhi last year, with 25% being punishment for buying Russian oil. Now, the latest 25% Iran-linked tariff could mean that Indian exports to the US may well face a 75% tariff. And that's not all. The US president recently gave the go-ahead to a bill that proposes 500% tariffs on countries that continue to purchase Russian oil despite sanctions. New Delhi has long-standing trade and strategic links not only with Russia but also with Iran, including energy imports and the development of the strategically important Chabahar port. Trump is hoping to tighten the noose around Iran, which is currently witnessing its biggest anti-government protests in years. The brutal regime crackdown on the protests has resulted in over 600 people being killed.
The global trade map has shifted again, and this time the ripple effects may reach India directly. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping new tariff threat. Any country that continues to do business with Iran will face a flat 25% tariff on all trade with the United States. The order, Trump says, takes effect immediately. The move is being positioned as pressure on Iran, pressure over its handling of nationwide protests that have reportedly left nearly 600 people dead. Trump has warned that Iran is crossing a dangerous line. He has even hinted at military options if the use of lethal force continues. Against this backdrop, tariffs have become Washington's chosen weapon. For India, the announcement raises serious questions. India is Iran's 5th largest trading partner, and India already faces heavy tariffs from the U.S. Indian exports currently attract a 50% tariff, Half of it is labeled reciprocal. The other half is a penalty for India's crude oil imports from Russia. Now, Iran-linked trade could add another layer of pressure. So what exactly is at stake for India? India and Iran share a long-standing trade relationship. India exports rice, especially basmati, to Iran. It also sends tea, sugar, pharmaceuticals, electrical equipment, fibers, and jewelry. In return, India imports dry fruits, chemicals, and glassware. Among all these, basmati rice stands out. Iran is one of the biggest buyers of Indian basmati rice. Every year, Iran purchases over 1 million tons. Some estimates put the figure closer to 12 lakh tons. The value of this trade alone is around 12,000 crore rupees. Any disruption here would directly hit Indian farmers and exporters. But Iran is not among India's top 5 global trade partners. India's largest export destinations remain the US, the UAE, the Netherlands, China, and the UK. Together, they account for more than 40% of India's exports. This gives New Delhi some cushion, but the risk is still real. Beyond trade, there is strategy. India has a major geopolitical stake in Iran's Chabahar port. Chabahar is India's gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia. It allows India to bypass Pakistan completely. For years, the U.S. had allowed India a sanctions waiver for Chabahar. That waiver was extended briefly, but later withdrawn as Washington tightened pressure on Tehran. If the exemption lapses fully, Indian companies operating at Chabahar could face U.S. penalties. That would complicate India's regional connectivity plans, especially at a time when India is slowly rebuilding engagement with Afghanistan. So where does this leave India? India now has to balance 3 realities: its strategic partnership with the United States, its economic and regional interests with Iran, and the growing use of trade as a geopolitical weapon by Washington. New Delhi has so far avoided public confrontation, but quiet diplomacy will intensify. India will assess how much exposure it can afford, which sectors can absorb pressure, and where it may seek exemptions or workarounds. One thing is clear: Trump's tariff warning is not just about Iran. It is a signal to the world. Align with U.S. policy or pay an economic price. For India, the challenge is to protect its interests without triggering a trade escalation, and to ensure that strategic projects like Chabahar do not become collateral damage. As global tensions rise, India is once again walking a tightrope between economics, strategy, and geopolitics.
India has sent out a clear and calibrated message to the West. Its defense choices will be guided by national interest and not under the influence of ideology, external pressure, or geopolitical camps. New Delhi has sought to send out that message during the visit of German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Standing next to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Merz said Germany wanted to deepen defense cooperation with India and that such cooperation could help New Delhi become less dependent on Moscow. Subsequently, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri made India's position clear, saying India's defense sourcing policy is driven entirely by national interest.
India has sent out a clear and calibrated message. Defense choices will be guided by national interest, not ideology, not pressure, and not geopolitical camps. That message came after comments by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz during his India visit. Standing alongside Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Merz said Germany wants to deepen defense cooperation with India. He added that such cooperation could help India become less dependent on Russia.
We want to deepen our defense industries and the cooperation of our defense industries, and this has strategic significance. That strengthens both, and that leads to the fact that India is less dependent on Russia. You saw it. We signed groundbreaking memoranda of declaration. One memorandum stipulates the closer cooperation of our defense industries in the field of development and production, and the promotion.
New Delhi responded swiftly but calmly. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri made India's position clear. India's defense sourcing policy, he said, is driven entirely by national interest. It is not ideological, and it is not about choosing one country over another.
Other sources. I think insofar as the security policy aspect is concerned, he was pointing to what I was talking about earlier, which is the change in the approach that Germany has taken with regard to defense and security policy insofar as India is concerned. But look, our approach on defense sourcing is driven entirely by our national interests. There are a lot of factors involved in that. And it is certainly not ideological. It is entirely driven by our interests. So I would not say that sourcing from one is linked to sourcing from the other. We have a process in place that sets the requirements that we have at any given time, and we look at where in the world, if we are going to source it from outside, if we are not going to manufacture it domestically, then where can we source it from in the most convenient manner. But I don't think one is influenced by the other.
This statement matters because India's defense ecosystem has deep roots in Russia. A large part of India's military hardware is of Russian origin, from T-90 tanks to Sukhoi 30 fighter jets, from MiG aircraft to air defense systems. Defense cooperation is also a core pillar of the India-Russia strategic partnership. It is backed by formal agreements, regular military exchanges, joint exercises, and long-term technical cooperation. Over the years, this relationship has evolved. It is no longer just buyer and seller. It includes joint research, joint development, and joint production. The BrahMos missile is the strongest example. So is the AK-203 rifle being manufactured in India. At the same time, India is expanding defense partnerships elsewhere, including with Germany. Germany's defense posture towards India has changed. According to Misri, approvals that once took years are now moving faster. Backlogs have largely been cleared. Berlin is signaling greater openness. One key example is the proposed submarine deal. Germany's ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems is in talks to build 6 submarines in partnership with Mazagon Dock shipbuilders. Discussions are ongoing. They are technical, financial, and commercial. Misri confirmed that talks are progressing positively, but he avoided timelines. He said the Defense Ministry is best placed to comment once discussions conclude. What is clear is India's broader approach. India has a defined defense procurement process. Requirements are assessed first. If equipment cannot be made locally, India looks globally for the best option, the most suitable partner, the most reliable supply. This approach also fits with India's push for self-reliance, Make in India, co-development, and co-production. India wants technology, manufacturing capability, and long-term autonomy. Germany fits into that vision, so does Russia, so do others. India is not reducing dependence to please anyone, and it is not shifting partners to signal alignment in the Ukraine war. India has consistently maintained strategic autonomy on Ukraine, on Russia, and on Europe. This is the larger context. Europe's tensions with Moscow are real. Germany's outreach reflects its own recalibration, but India's position remains firm. Defense decisions will serve India's security needs and India's interests alone. That is the message New Delhi has sent, quietly, clearly, and without ambiguity.
Because for India, defense is not diplomacy by ideology. It is strategy by necessity.
India was ready to launch a ground offensive against Pakistan, and Operation Sindoor is still on. That important statement has been made today by Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi, adding that the Indian military eliminated 100 Pakistani personnel during last year's conflict. The Army Chief said the forces are fully alert and have already put in place preparations for whatever actions may be required next. General Dwivedi also stated that 8 terror camps are active, 2 of them opposite the international border and 6 along the line of control. Speaking about India's adversaries, the Army Chief also issued a blunt rejection of the 1963 Pakistan-China agreement over Shasgam Valley, calling it illegal and invalid. Stressing on India's sovereignty, the Army Chief said Shasgam Valley is an integral part of Ladakh and that New Delhi will not accept any Chinese or Pakistani activity in the region.
तो फोर्स स्ट्रक्चर तो एक सब्जेक्ट ही अपने आप में है, तो मैं उसके बारे में आके बाद में बात करता हूं। जहां तक न्यूक्लियर रिटोरिक का चीज है, मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि डीजीएमओ टॉक्स में न्यूक्लियर के ऊपर कोई भी बात नहीं हुई थी और जो न्यूक्लियर रिटोरिक जो भी दी जा रही थी वो पॉलिटिशियन द्वारा दी जा रही थी या लोकल पब्लिक द्वारा दी जा रही थी पाकिस्तान में। मुझे ऐसा कोई अंदाज नहीं है कि मिलिट्री की तरफ से ये कोई ऐसी चीज आई थी। जब हम बोलते हैं कि इसमें हमारा रोल क्या था, जब हम बात करते हैं, पहले बोला जाता था कि कन्वेंशनल ऑपरेशंस के लिए जो स्पेस है वो कम होती जा रही है और सब कन्वेंशन से डायरेक्टली हम सीधे न्यूक्लियर डोमेन में जाएंगे। परंतु इस बार जो हमने कार्रवाई की, आपको पता है कि जम्मू कश्मीर में स्पेशली जिस तरह की फायरिंग हुई थी और जिस तरह से हमने उनको एड्रेस किया और तकरीबन हमने उनके 100 लोगों को जो खत्म किया, वो सब कार्रवाई जो हुई थी वो इसीलिए हुई थी क्योंकि हमने कन्वेंशनल स्पेस को बढ़ाया। और उस 88 आवर्स में आपने देखा कि कन्वेंशनल स्पेस को बढ़ाने के लिए आर्मी का जो मोबिलाइजेशन था वो इस प्रकार से था कि कोई भी ऐसी गलती अगर पाकिस्तान ने की जिसमें कि हमें मजबूर होना पड़ा ग्राउंड ऑपरेशन शुरू होने के लिए, हमने पूरी तैयारी कर रखी थी। तो मैं यही कहना चाहूंगा कि जहां तक न्यूक्लियर रिटोरिक का सवाल था, डीजीएमओ लेवल पे कोई ऐसी बात नहीं हुई थी और कन्वेंशनल स्पेस को हमने बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ाया था। एंड अबाउट द शक्सकम वैली, सो एज द शक्सकम वैली इज कंसर्न, इंडिया कंसीडर्स 1963 agreement between Pakistan China as illegal. Therefore, any activity in Shakskam Valley is concerned, we do not approve of it, and in this terms, MEA has already issued the statement. Therefore, the joint statement which has been issued in China, what I understand about the CPEC 2.0, we do not accept it, and we consider that it is an illegal action which is being carried out by the two nations.
The Supreme Court today issued a terse warning to those claiming to be dog feeders. The top court said these people should continue their activities from their homes. The 3-judge special bench warned that states will likely have to pay compensation for every dog bite that leads to death or injury. The court was hearing a batch of petitions, including those filed by dog lovers seeking modification of its earlier orders. There seems to be no end to the targeted killings of Hindus in Bangladesh amid the ongoing violence and unrest. A 28-year-old Hindu auto driver named Sameer Das was reportedly beaten and stabbed to death in Dagan Bhuya in Bangladesh's Chittagong region. The attack took place on Sunday evening when a group of assailants targeted Das, thrashed him brutally, stabbed him multiple times, and then fled the scene after taking away his battery-operated auto rickshaw. Over the past several months, Hindu men and women have been repeatedly targeted in the most brutal manner amid Bangladesh's political and social unrest.
Another Hindu man has been killed in Bangladesh. Sameer Das, a 28-year-old Hindu auto driver, was beaten and stabbed to death in Dagan Bhuyan in Bangladesh's Chittagong region. The attack happened on Sunday evening. A group of assailants targeted him, thrashed him brutally, stabbed him multiple times, and fled the scene after taking away his battery-operated auto rickshaw. For his family, it was not just a murder, it was the loss of their only breadwinner.
Samir Das's killing is not an isolated crime. It is part of a disturbing pattern of violence against Hindu minorities in Bangladesh. Over the past several months, Hindu men and women have been repeatedly targeted amid political unrest and street protests. What began as agitation over the death of youth leader Sharif Osman Hadi has spiraled into unchecked mob violence, with minorities increasingly finding themselves exposed and unprotected. The list of victims is growing longer and darker. Dipu Chandra Das was lynched and burnt alive in Mymensingh over alleged blasphemy. His body was hung from a tree and set on fire. Amrit Mandal was beaten to death by a mob. Bajendra Biswas, a Hindu garment factory worker, was shot dead. Joy Mahapatra was allegedly beaten and later poisoned. Mithun Sarkar died after jumping into a canal while trying to escape a mob accusing him of theft. Rana Pratap Bairagi, a Hindu businessman and newspaper editor, was shot dead in Jessore. Sarat Mani Chakraborty, a Hindu grocery shop owner, also lost his life. In another horrific case, a Hindu woman was gang-raped, tied to a tree, and had her hair cut off. What makes the situation more serious now is the international reaction. Pope Leo XIV, the head of the Catholic Church, has issued a rare and strong statement condemning the violence in Bangladesh. He has described the attacks on minorities as religiously motivated.
Here I would especially call to mind the many victims of violence, including religiously motivated violence in Bangladesh, in the Sahel region, and in Nigeria, as well as those of the serious terrorist attack last June on the parish of St. Elias in Damascus. Nor do I forget the victims of jihadist violence in Cabo Delgado, Mozambique.
India has responded firmly. New Delhi has lodged strong protests against the targeted killings of Hindus and the continuing failure to ensure minority safety. Protests have erupted in several Indian cities, with demands for immediate action from the UNIS-led government in Dhaka. While a few arrests have been made in some cases, India has made it clear that symbolic action is not enough. Accountability must be visible. Justice must be delivered.
We had on several occasions in earlier presses as well, I have commented on this particular issue that you referred to. We continue to witness a disturbing pattern of recurring attacks on minorities that you referred, as well as their homes and establishments, business establishments by extremists in Bangladesh. Such communal incidents need to be dealt with swiftly and firmly. We have also observed a troubling tendency to attribute such incidents to personal rivalries, personal vendettas, political differences, and other extraneous reasons. Such disregard only emboldens the extremists and the perpetrators of such crimes and deepens the sense of fear and insecurity among the minorities.
The recent killings of minorities underscore a deeper crisis unfolding in Bangladesh, a crisis that is now drawing condemnation from world leaders, religious authorities, and neighboring countries alike. The message from India and the international community is increasingly clear. Violence driven by religious hatred cannot be ignored. Silence will only embolden attackers, and until minorities feel safe, Bangladesh will remain under global watch. Because this is no longer just a law and order issue, it is a test of human rights, and the world is watching.
Just what will US President Donald Trump do to rein in the Iranian regime as it continues its brutal crackdown on protesters? Crackdown that has left over 600 people dead. 10 days ago, Trump had said the US was prepared to go to the rescue of Iranian protesters if their government used violence against them. He said the US was locked and loaded and ready to go. That was before the violent crackdown in Iraq had actually begun. So what are Trump's options now? The Pentagon today briefed Trump on possible courses of action. According to defense officials, the US response could include a variety of covert methods, including cyber operations and psychological campaigns intended to disrupt and confuse Iran's command structures. Flushed with success in Venezuela, Trump might face a strong temptation to deploy the US military. However, experts strongly warn against it. They say even in its weakened state and battered by recent American and Israeli strikes, Iran is not Venezuela. The Islamic Republic is a battle-hardened regime. The removal of a single figure is unlikely to bend the entire country to Washington's will. Experts say the US is perfectly capable, though, of mounting attacks from a distance, as was demonstrated by last year's strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Back then, B-2 stealth bombers flew 30-hour round-trip missions to drop bunker-busting bombs on two of Iran's most important nuclear sites.
Well, I think one thing President Trump is very good at is always keeping all of his options on the table, and airstrikes would be one of the many options that are on the table for the commander-in-chief. Diplomacy is always the first option for the president. He's told all of you last night that what you're hearing publicly from the Iranian regime is quite differently from the messages the administration is receiving privately, and I think the president has an interest in exploring those messages. However, with that said, the president has shown he's unafraid to use military options if and when he deems necessary, and nobody knows that better than Iran.
The countdown to a potential US-Iran confrontation has begun. After airstrikes, tariff threats of 25%, and escalating rhetoric, the ground beneath global diplomacy is trembling, placing Donald Trump at the center of a decision that could reshape the Middle East and beyond. Inside the Oval Office, the stakes could not be higher. Trump is now weighing a spectrum of high-risk options as the Pentagon lays its cards on the table. According to a CBS News report citing two U.S. officials, military planners have briefed the commander-in-chief on a sweeping menu of covert actions, ranging from military strikes to cyber warfare and psychological operations aimed at the Islamic Republic, potentially in support of anti-regime protesters. The choices are loaded. The consequences irreversible. Sources familiar with the matter told CBS News that Trump's national security team is scheduled to meet at the White House on Tuesday to review updated policy and military options related to Iran, though it remains unclear whether the president will attend. Meanwhile, CBS News reported that air power and long-range missile capabilities remain key components of any potential military action. A New York Times report earlier reported that Trump was briefed on a range of military options targeting Iran. As per the report, the options presented to the US president include targeted strikes on select sites in Tehran, including non-military infrastructure linked to the regime's internal security apparatus. However, a final decision is yet to be made, as Trump is still mulling options. Meanwhile, CBS News reported that Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has reached out to U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to explore direct diplomatic engagement amid threat of U.S. strikes. According to two sources with knowledge of the discussions, a possible meeting between the sides is under consideration, CBS News reported. CBS's report came a day after Trump also claimed that Tehran has reached out to Washington seeking negotiations.
Sir, on Iran, have they crossed your red line yet to trigger a response?
No, they're starting to, it looks like, and there seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it. And we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
Which options have you been briefed on? Are you meeting with senior officials?
I'm going to tell you the.
Are you meeting with
Am I going to really? Are you asking me to say what will they do? Where will we attack? When? And at what angle will we attack from?
Are you considering?
Who are you in?
White House TV pool. I'm wondering, are you being briefed on options? I'm with CNN, sir.
Why don't you just say I'm with CNN? She says I'm with the White House pool.
Yes.
And I say, what? You're with CNN. You're with
CNN,
you're
yes.
with fake news.
Iran
Because
said
CNN
that-
is fake news.
Iran
Go ahead,
said
give me a question.
Can I ask how you're balancing and how you're deciding your response, the balance between helping protesters versus hindering them? Because I imagine that's a delicate balance to strike.
I mean, some of the protesters were killed through the stampeding. I mean, you know, there's so many of them, and some were shot. We get a full report. I'm getting an hourly report, and we're going to make a determination.
Sir, the son of the disposed Shah, and some military leaders are encouraging you to take action in Iran. Is that a serious option? And are you listening?
People have been shot, and we're looking at it. Yeah, places.
Are you going to send Starlink to Iran, sir, to help the people in the ground with the internet blackout for more than 72 hours?
We're going to be talking about that. We may get the internet going, if that's possible.
Are you talking to Musk
We may
about it?
speak to Elon, because as you know, he's very good at that kind of thing. He's got a very good company, so we may speak to Elon Musk. And in fact, I'm going to call him as soon as I'm finished with you.
Just quickly, Iran said that they would consider military and commercial bases as legitimate targets if you struck. Are you concerned about?
If they do that, we'll consider things targets they wouldn't believe. If they do that, we will hit them at levels that they've never been hit before. They won't even believe it.
Do you think
I have options that are so strong. So I mean, if they did that, it'll be met with a very, very powerful force.
Do you think Iran takes your threats seriously?
I think so. Don't you think so, CNN? Don't you think so? Wouldn't you say that they probably do at this point? After going through it for years with me, being hit, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, the Iran nuclear threat wiped out. Don't you think, and then you just had Venezuela, don't you think, she says, CNN, do you think they take your threat seriously? Wouldn't you say they do after all of the things we've done? What a stupid question.
That's all the time we have on this edition of Headlines at 8. Thanks for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow.